but it's fine. Just let's brush our teeth, pee, put some shoes on, and leave because my driver's in my...
I know a story about a dangerous obsession with female beauty, a story that has been told for centuries, reshaped 1,000 times, and still manages to say something about the world we live in. It's called Snow White. What began as a simple fairy tale about vanity, innocence, and envy has now become a reflection of Hollywood's own struggle with identity. Before we dive into how everything started to unravel, imagine this. Disney, the empire built on dreams and nostalgia, believed it had found its perfect modern princess, a bold, outspoken 20-something who could sing, act, and embody the progressive ideals of a new generation. But in the age of viral outrage, one careless moment can rewrite a career. One soundbite was all it took for that dream to shatter. Overnight, Rachel Zegler, once hailed as Hollywood's golden girl, became the internet's favorite punching bag. The fallout that followed didn't just scorch her reputation, it singed everything around her. Her co-stars, the box office, and even Disney's century-old brand. This isn't just a story about a movie gone wrong, it's about what happens when image and ideology collide in the digital age, when a fairy tale collides with a firestorm. So buckle up, because Snow White was never just a children's story anymore. It became a mirror, and what it reflected was ugly. It all started innocently enough. A single audition tape, recorded by a teenage girl from New Jersey, found its way into the hands of Steven Spielberg. That girl was Rachel Zegler. Bright-eyed, confident, and bursting with talent. Her performance landed her the lead in West Side Story, one of Hollywood's most iconic musicals. Critics raved. She won awards, red carpet invites, magazine covers, and a tidal wave of online adoration. For a moment, she was untouchable. The next big thing. And Disney, always eager for a fresh face to lead its reimagined classics, came calling. Less than a year later, Zegler was announced as the new Snow White. To the world, it looked like Destiny, a Latina actress playing one of Disney's most iconic roles. The studio saw it as a bold move, a statement of modernity, inclusivity, and progress. Headlines in major entertainment outlets called it a groundbreaking choice. Disney's top brass framed it as a cultural evolution, proof that their stories could grow with the times. Rachel herself called it a dream come true, the kind of role she'd fantasized about since childhood. For a brief, shining moment, everyone seemed to agree that this was the future of Disney magic. But fairy tales, as history shows, have a habit of turning dark. And before a single ticket was sold, this one would descend into chaos. The first crack didn't come from bad casting or a weak script. It came from a microphone. At Disney's D23 Expo, Rachel took the stage to promote the film. What should have been a routine press event turned into the spark that lit the fuse. Asked a harmless question about the original 1937 Snow White and its famous prince, she smirked and said, "He literally stalks her. We're not doing that." A joke maybe, but in the age of TikTok, context doesn't travel as fast as outrage. The clip hit social media within minutes, spreading like wildfire. By the time she left the stage, girl boss Snow White was trending worldwide. Some praised her for her candor and modern perspective, calling it refreshing. But others, especially Disney purists, saw it as arrogance, a slap in the face to a timeless classic. Then came the follow-up interviews. She called the plot weird, dismissed the idea of being saved by a prince, and even joked that she was so over the concept of true love. Each clip became a soundbite, then a meme, then a headline. The algorithm feasted. What started as a feminist reimagining quickly mutated into a digital pile-on. By week's end, the story wasn't about the movie anymore. It was about her. The internet had made up its mind. Rachel Zegler wasn't Snow White. She was Hollywood's symbol of entitlement and disrespect for tradition. And just like that, Disney's dream marketing campaign turned into a public relations nightmare. But if the internet's fury was bad, the industry backlash made things worse. Enter Peter Dinklage, the Emmy-winning Game of Thrones actor. In a viral podcast interview, he slammed Disney for what he saw as hypocrisy, claiming they were still exploiting outdated tropes even as they preached progress. His comments triggered another storm. Disney, now desperate to contain the damage, scrapped the Seven Dwarfs entirely, replacing them with a lineup of CGI magical creatures, plus one real dwarf actor for representation. It was a move meant to silence critics, but instead, it poured fuel on the fire. Fans accused Disney of overcorrecting, erasing beloved characters in the name of performative wokeness. Conservative commentators mocked the company for pandering, while progressives accused it of tone-deaf tokenism. What was once a feel-good remake had become a battlefield of culture wars, internet factions, and bad optics. Behind the scenes, insiders described a studio in full-blown panic. Marketing teams scrambled to reframe the narrative. Rachel was coached to be more diplomatic, her interviews rehearsed and polished, but the damage was done. Every time she spoke, her words were dissected, clipped, and re-uploaded to millions of skeptical viewers. She became the villain in her own fairy tale, not because of what she said, but because of what people wanted her to represent. And as months went by, the conversation shifted from her comments to something bigger: Disney itself. A studio, once synonymous with magic and childhood innocence, was now being accused of losing its soul, trying so hard to please everyone that it pleased no one. Snow White, once a simple story about purity and jealousy, had become a reflection of Hollywood's own insecurities. By the time the trailer dropped, the damage was irreversible. The dislikes outweighed the likes. Memes mocked the costumes, the effects, and even the rewritten message. The film that was meant to modernize a legend had become a cautionary tale about ego, identity, and the unforgiving speed of the internet. Because in the end, Snow White wasn't just about who's the fairest of them all anymore. It was about who could survive the mirror's reflection. And in Rachel Zegler's case, the answer was far more complicated than anyone at Disney ever imagined. The backlash flipped overnight. What Disney thought would be a show of progress suddenly became a full-blown controversy that no one saw coming. Dwarf actors, including Jackass icon Jason "Wee-Man" Acuna, condemned the studio's decision, calling it erasure masquerading as progress. Disability advocates joined in, accusing Disney of sidelining real representation in favor of sanitized optics. For years, those actors had fought to be seen as legitimate performers, and now a billion-dollar studio had effectively told them they were too problematic to exist. The outrage was immediate and unanimous, a rare moment when both sides of the cultural spectrum agreed, if only in shared frustration. Some screamed, "Woke gone wild," while others accused Disney of representation removed. In its desperate attempt to avoid controversy, the company had achieved something remarkable: disappointing everyone at once. And just as the casting war began to cool, another firestorm erupted, this time political. Old tweets resurfaced, the kind that every PR team dreads. They weren't particularly shocking by Hollywood standards. Pro-choice slogans, blunt. Anti-Trump digs, even a free Palestine retweet. But in a post-pandemic, hyper-polarized media landscape, timing is everything. Right-wing influencers pounced, calling for a boycott of Snow White and branding Zegler as a radical activist. Moderate fans, who had once been charmed by her talent, began to question Disney's decision to cast someone so outspoken. Meanwhile, progressive voices turned their fury on the studio, accusing it of silencing her to protect profits. What had started as a simple fairy tale had now become a political minefield. Behind the scenes, chaos brewed. Insiders whispered that producer Mark Platt, a veteran of Hollywood's most carefully managed musicals, arranged mandatory social media coaching for Zegler. The goal was damage control, to teach her how to stay on message, avoid controversy, and rebuild her image. But according to leaks that soon spread online, Rachel skipped the first session, calling it performative nonsense. Whether that rumor was true or not didn't really matter. It fit the growing public perception of her as defiant, difficult, and disconnected from reality. In the eyes of critics, she wasn't just mishandling a role, she was self-destructing in real time. Then came the Oscars. Disney hoped to use the moment as a soft reset, a show of unity between its two powerhouse stars, Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot, the reigning Amazon warrior turned evil queen. The pair were set to present the award for Best Visual Effects, a lighthearted moment meant to humanize them and spark fan excitement for the upcoming Snow White. But what audiences got instead was pure viral awkwardness. "Bring me Snow Whites. Hard in this box," Gadot declared playfully, referencing her iconic line. "What will I do with the rest of the body?" Rachel responded with a forced laugh. "Put it in this box." The line was meant to land as witty and sisterly, but something was off. Their smiles didn't reach their eyes. Their timing was offbeat. The tension was palpable, the kind of discomfort that even through the TV screen felt icy cold. When the camera panned back, Gadot stood a half step ahead of Zegler, her expression polite but distant. Rachel's nervous laugh and stiff posture only fueled speculation. Body language experts on YouTube had a field day.
Gaga fan, so honestly, even when I'm getting ready in the morning to work on set, it's Lady Gaga. I never was the...
Slow motion breakdowns racked up millions of views, analyzing every micro glance and every step as the two exited the stage. The verdict was unanimous: frostier than the Dolby Theater's air conditioning. By the next morning, tabloids were flooded with headlines. Gadot distances herself from controversial co-star. A supposed Variety insider even claimed that Rachel had referred to Gadot off-camera as a professional pageant queen, a dig that quickly caught fire across social media. There was no proof, no recordings, not even a credible source. But none of that mattered. In the court of public opinion, evidence is optional. The rumored feud became yet another spark in a firestorm that refused to die. Fans split into factions, your team Gal and our team Rachel, each one convinced they were defending the real victim. Comment sections turned into battlefields, Twitter threads into propaganda wars. And through it all, Disney's once promising live-action remake was nowhere to be found. The conversation wasn't about the film's artistry, its message, or even its release date. It was about scandal, ego, and who the public hated more. By the time the dust began to settle, one truth had become painfully clear. No one was talking about Snow White the movie anymore. They were talking about Snow White the Meltdown, a corporate fairy tale gone wrong, starring a studio that couldn't stop tripping over its own reflection, and an actress who didn't know when to stop talking. All that drama eventually showed up where it hurt most: at the box office. When Snow White finally opened, the numbers told a brutal story. The film premiered to just $43 million domestically, barely half of Disney's already scaled-back projections. What was meant to be the studio's crown jewel of the year instead became its most expensive embarrassment. By the second weekend, the film had slid out of the top 5 entirely, overtaken not just by blockbuster competition, but by a low-budget horror flick and even a Mario Kart re-release. Analysts pegged the shortfall at a staggering $115 million, calling it one of the steepest second-week drops in Disney history. Then came the insult to injury. A sustainability watchdog reported that the film's carbon footprint rivaled that of a mid-sized town. The headline practically wrote itself: "Woke Snow White isn't even green." Late-night comedians pounced, roasting the film's irony on national television. Monologues mocked its production costs, its environmental hypocrisy, and its stars' self-inflicted PR wounds. Merchandise sales cratered. Disney stores quietly slashed prices on dolls and apparel, and what was meant to be the next generation of princess branding became discount bin clearance. By the time Disney's quarterly earnings call arrived, the normally upbeat tone had turned somber. Analysts described the call as funereal. Executives danced around the numbers, insisting that creative risk is part of storytelling, but no one was buying it. Investors wanted answers. Fans wanted an apology. And the internet wanted blood. As the audience tuned out, satire tuned in. Because when Hollywood stumbles, the yellow family from Springfield is never far behind. News leaked that The Simpsons had wrapped an upcoming episode titled Snowed In. Their parody version of Rachel Zegler, renamed Rachel Zans, was portrayed as a delusional, self-righteous actress who replaces the Seven Dwarfs with vertically optimized sprites and suffers a breakdown on Krusty the Clown's talk show. A single promo still, Rachel Z clutching an empty award shelf, mascara running down her face, went viral before the episode even aired. Within hours, YouTube critics began splicing that image with Rachel's real-life interviews, creating brutal compilation videos that scored millions of views in days. Then, South Park joined the feeding frenzy, releasing a parody trailer titled Woke White and the 7 Algorithms. Reddit dubbed it the fastest cartoon roast in history. For decades, being mocked by The Simpsons or South Park has been a rite of passage, the moment a celebrity stops being influential and starts being entertainment. Rachel had crossed that line. Behind the scenes, her team reportedly begged Disney to step in, to issue a statement, defend her, do something. The studio's response was silence. That silence spoke volumes to the rest of Hollywood. Insiders saw it for what it was: Disney cutting ties in everything but contract. Public appearances vanished. Red carpet premieres shrank to influencer-only screenings. The planned international press tour was quietly scrapped. According to multiple leaks, casting departments were even instructed to pause projects featuring Rachel Zegler. Technically, she was still under contract, but no new offers came in. In a business where image is currency, Rachel had become a liability, a walking risk assessment. Brands backed away, terrified of social media backlash. Talk shows avoided booking her, worried about viral gaffes. Directors hesitated, fearing headlines would overshadow their films. The actress who once embodied Disney's bright, inclusive future was now treated like radioactive material. Her personal life wasn't spared either. The strain of constant negativity took its toll on her relationship with West Side Story co-star Josh Andres Rivera. The two, once Hollywood's new power couple, quietly split amid a storm of death threats, paparazzi chases, and hate-fueled comment sections. Fans dissected the breakup like an end-credit scene, twisting it into part of the larger narrative of a young star imploding before their eyes. And then came the final blow, the cultural obituary, the IMDb score. Within a month of release, Snow White's rating plummeted to a jaw-dropping 6 out of 10, lower than legendary disasters like Cats or The Room. Reviewers didn't just criticize the story or the visual effects, they eviscerated the film's tone, calling it preachy, soulless, and painfully smug. Many singled out Zegler's performance, not for her acting, but for what she represented. It was more than just a box office bomb. Snow White had become a symbol, a cautionary tale about how good intentions, corporate politics, and unchecked ego can collide to create something far worse than failure: ridicule. And in Hollywood, ridicule is the one curse no amount of magic can break. Meme pages descended like vultures, feeding on the wreckage of Snow White. Twitter, Reddit, TikTok, every corner of the internet turned into a digital coliseum. Side-by-side comparisons went viral overnight. The 1937 original glowing proudly with a 98% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, while the remake's number bled crimson at 12%. The contrast was so extreme it looked photoshopped, but it wasn't. This was reality, and reality had gone viral. TikTokers filmed themselves walking through nearly empty theaters, their voices echoing off the walls as they counted rows of vacant seats. Some turned it into a trend, or Snow White Challenge, where users documented just how empty their local showings were. One clip in particular defined the moment. A lone woman, dressed as the evil queen, sitting in the middle of an empty cinema, cackling maniacally at the screen. "It's just me and my reflection," the caption read. Millions watched, thousands laughed, and Disney's nightmare deepened. The numbers weren't just disappointing, they were historic. Analysts began comparing the collapse to infamous Hollywood disasters like John Carter, The Flash, and even Cats. For a studio like Disney, long viewed as bulletproof, the failure was seismic. The brand that once symbolized magic and mass appeal now symbolized miscalculation. And in the age of digital memory, once a moment like that is etched in pixels, it never truly disappears. But if you thought box office numbers were the final blow, you underestimated Hollywood's capacity for weirdness. Because what came next blurred the line between scandal and simulation. As if written by Black Mirror, a fake OnlyFans profile suddenly appeared online, complete with AI-generated images of Rachel Zegler. Within hours, the account amassed thousands of followers. The pictures were eerily convincing, slightly uncanny, but realistic enough to trick casual scrollers. It was grotesque, exploitative, and for many, disturbingly believable. The story spread across Reddit and TikTok like wildfire. Even after the account was debunked within a day, the damage was already done. People wanted to believe it. That's how far her reputation had slipped. Cybersecurity lawyers, digital ethicists, and entertainment journalists all weighed in. Disney's legal department sprang into action, firing off takedown notices and threatening lawsuits against anyone reposting the images. But it was a losing battle. The internet doesn't forget, and screenshots live forever. Rachel herself finally broke her silence. In a tearful post on X, she wrote, "Please stop exploiting my image. I'm a real person. This is terrifying." For a brief moment, sympathy flickered. Then the trolls pounced. Her words were mocked, remixed, turned into memes. The cruelty was relentless. Some users even used AI voice tools to create fake apologies and parody songs in her voice. What should have been a straightforward case of online defamation became another chapter in the circus, another headline for the algorithm to devour. And beneath the chaos, a brutal truth emerged. Once the public narrative spirals, even the unreal can destroy you. In today's Hollywood, perception is everything. Reputation is no longer built on roles or performances. It's built on memes, trends, and comment sections. Rachel Zegler's story was supposed to be a 21st century Cinderella arc, a gifted newcomer discovered by Steven Spielberg, crowned Disney royalty, adored by millions. Instead, it became a cautionary tale, a parable about how quickly modern fame can curdle. Her poisoned apple wasn't jealousy, it was virality. Her dwarfs weren't sidekicks, they were algorithms. And the mirror that once promised beauty and adoration now reflected only backlash and burnout. In less than 3 years, she went from West Side Story wunderkind to a cautionary symbol of Hollywood's PR nightmare. The same internet that built her career dismantled it. One clip, one comment, one misunderstanding at a time. Talent, as it turned out, could no longer outsing outrage. Still, if there's one thing Hollywood loves more than scandal, it's redemption. Rachel could still claw her way back. All it takes is one knockout performance, one viral moment of humility, one well-timed act of vulnerability that reminds the world she's human. The industry forgives, not out of compassion, but out of hunger. A comeback story always sells, but that window is closing fast. The memes are multiplying. The jokes are solidifying into public memory. Every silence is misread as arrogance, every statement as damage control. In the court of online opinion, timing is everything, and Rachel's timing has been offbeat from the start. So, the next time a studio crowns a new princess, maybe they'll remember this saga and tread a little more carefully. Because in the age of instant outrage, the fairest of them all isn't the one with flawless skin or perfect pitch. It's the one who understands that silence can be strategy, that mystery still has value, and that sometimes the best way to win is to step away from the mirror. In 2025, Snow White taught the entertainment world a new moral. It's not love conquers all anymore. It's control the narrative, or the narrative controls you. And maybe that's the real tragedy here. Not the movie, not the memes, but the reminder that in modern Hollywood, fairy tales don't end with happily ever after. They end with a hashtag. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories like this one. Drop a comment below. We're reading them all.